Okay. Hopefully the other councillors will be joining us. I don't know why they're not, but let's get the meeting started. I think it's going to be quite a long agenda. Welcome to the members of the public. It's always good to see you here. And welcome to Chris Pyburn, who's going to speak to us under item 5. I would, at the start of this meeting, like to take the opportunity to publicly thank Deborah for all her hard work as our acting town council manager. This is Deborah's last council meeting, and tomorrow she'll be leaving us. Deborah joined us back in November. She's guided us through this terrible coronavirus pandemic and was instrumental in setting up the helpline, which has assisted so many of our residents. We've continued to function as a council thanks to her exemplary organisational abilities. I'm very grateful to the dedication and commitment Deborah has shown throughout her time working for Newmarket Town Council. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
We'll now go on to item 2, apologies for absence.
We have an apology from Councillor Caesar.
Okay. Thank you. Item 3 is councillors' interests, and I remind members to declare their interests, and they need to keep up to date with their register of members' interests. And are there any requests received for members' dispensation? Take that as a no. There's a lot of clearly faces I have to scan with so many members of the public, so you may need to speak up if you wish to speak, because it's quite difficult to scan everyone quickly.
Well, that's going to be rather challenging because I have muted everybody.
Yeah, right. Well, make it very clear that you wish to speak, please.
If they could just put their hands up to indicate they want to speak at the appropriate time.
We'll go on to item 4, the minutes of the last meeting. And first of all, we have to agree that they are indeed an accurate record of our last meeting. So I'll go through page by page. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. Can I have a proposal that they are indeed a correct record? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Anderson. All those in favour, please show your hands now. Thank you. And against? And abstentions? Thank you.
Good evening. Apologies for being late.
Hello, Kevin. Good to see you.
Hi, sorry, technical problem.
Hi, Kevin.
Good evening.
Okay, we're just doing the minutes at the moment. We're on to matters arising.
Fine, thank you.
So, page 1, page 2. Yes, Councillor Hood, page 2. You need to unmute.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Under working groups, you might recall that last time I hadn't seen the acting town council manager's response, and on the 3rd paragraph of page 2, there is some wording that I subsequently communicated with the acting town council manager, and I said when I'd read her email regarding the attached emails from you and South's Jim Friend, obviously nothing has been added to the fact that Jim Friend confirmed that terms of reference are still required by Newmarket Town Council standing orders for working groups. And I go on to say that we do need working groups with terms of reference. And so I'm responding to that because I've never said that working groups were invalidated by not having terms of reference. What I have said consistently is that if you have a working group under our Standing Order 31, you need terms of reference. Jim Friend agrees that we didn't have terms of reference for this new working group. In fact, we didn't seem to have terms of reference for several working groups. We certainly didn't have it for this one. And until we change our standing orders, we need terms of reference.
Thank you. That's an observation, is it?
Well, I would like, no, I'm making a statement that I think should be put in the minutes under matters arising, please.
Okay. Let's hope the minute taker has made note of your points.
Thank you.
Thank you. That, I believe, was page 4, and I've forgotten where I got to now.
No, that was page, oh, I'm sorry, it was page 4.
I think I'd only got to page 2.
You
So I'm
have.
going to go to page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. Thank you. I don't think there are any more matters arising. Okay, we move on to item 5 on the agenda, and we've got a presentation. Chris Pyburn, the Public Health Manager at Suffolk County Council, is going to speak to us about a report that's he's done. And it is such an important report concerning the health and well-being of the people, our residents of Newmarket. I hope that in the autumn, we will have a special council meeting to discuss and consider the points. But over to Chris at this moment. Chris Pyburn.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I want to start by saying thank you very much for inviting me to present this evening, and also for the potential opportunity to come back in the autumn, because what I'm about to do is give you a summary report. It's one that I would originally have brought to the council meeting in March, but clearly that didn't happen because of COVID-19 and the circumstances around it. So this is a short summary of around 10 minutes. I'm very happy to take any questions that the council may have, but if there is an opportunity to come back in the autumn, this will be some headlines from the town survey, which is what I'll be talking about. There's clearly a lot more information and detail there that would need longer to really do justice. So I very much appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk in a bit more detail around what the results are saying. So some of you will have heard previous presentations. I've come to the council meeting before about a particular piece of work we've been doing since 2018 to support the mental and physical health and well-being of Newmarket residents. It's come about as a result of work with a partnership. So I work for Public Health, which is part of Suffolk County Council, but we're working with West Suffolk Council colleagues, organisations within the town, Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust, that's the Mental Health Trust, local businesses and others. So this is a real partnership piece of work. And it comes from some initial data that we considered back in 2018 that pointed at some indicators of poor health in some areas in the town of Newmarket and surrounding area, and a high prevalence of suicide in the town compared to other Suffolk towns. And we wanted to look at that in a bit more detail, which is where the town surveys come from, as well as a general plan and general work. It was looking at what do people have to say about what it's like to live and work and grow up in Newmarket. I should say we're also working with places like Stowmarket, Lowestoft, Needham Market, Ipswich, Leiston and others. So Newmarket is by no means the only town that we're working with. So I just wanted to make that point. So the town survey, the original intention was to deliver the survey in 4 different stages, and each stage would have a primary topic for consideration. So in late 2018, early 2019, the first stage was around physical activity. So where are the opportunities for physical activity in the town of all ages? What's good about physical activity? Where are the gaps? So I reported that back last year, and the results are available for those who would like to see them. What I'd like to talk about now is the stage 2 and 3, which I've summarised in the accompanying paper. Stage 2 survey had some core questions in around health and wellbeing, which are in all of the surveys for consistency. But the main topic in stage 2 is around connected communities. And what that means is about opportunities for socialising with others, support, family, friends, volunteering, and those sorts of things. So around connected community within Newmarket. And the third survey, the most recent survey, which we did early part of this year, was around the well-being of young people, which we felt was particularly important and remains particularly important. So again, what's it like to go to school and grow up in the town? And how does the physical environment where you live affect your emotional and mental well-being? Now, clearly all of this work was done pre-COVID-19, pre-coronavirus. So that was the well-being of the town then. There's a 4th stage, which we haven't yet clarified a topic for, and that's something else I would like to discuss, because I think that's open for suggestion now, because so much has happened in the last few months. There's a really good opportunity to look at what that fourth wellbeing topic might be for the fourth survey and around the timing of that. So that's just something I wanted you to bear in mind. It's not fixed yet by any means, so there's some discussion there around what the topic of that fourth survey might be. So, but very happy to come back, as I say, in the autumn and look at some of the details of stages 2 and 3 in further detail. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to pick out some key headlines, which again are in the paper. They're not exhaustive, there's much more information to cover, but I'm just going to pick out what I think are the key headlines. Then I'm going to talk a bit about where we go next, the next steps for this, and then very happy to take questions. So I'm going to start with the latest survey, which is stage 3, which is around young people's mental health and well-being. So 515 young people between the ages of 9 and 24 took part, and this was schools, primary school up to higher education, so not just in the town of Newmarket, but where Newmarket young people go to school or college elsewhere as well. So that covered places like Bury St Edmunds and elsewhere. So young people who are resident in Newmarket go to study. So it's a very broad age range. And we asked some core questions around health and well-being, what young people consider to be important around their mental health and well-being, and some of the factors that influence that. So what I wanted to say is we always have questions in all of the surveys around health and well-being. They're linked to the Office of National Statistics core national questions, which gives us a chance to sort of benchmark that to a certain extent. And they give you a real snapshot around how you're feeling at the point at which people answer the questions. So they were conducted in school with support from the teaching staff, mainly online. This wasn't so much a paper-based survey, but people could complete them on their own. It was entirely done on their own in the classroom environment, or where there was access to the survey to do that. And what it showed us is that from a very positive point of view, the core Office of National Statistics questions around things like how positive did you feel yesterday, how anxious are you feeling, I'm happy at this point in time. There are some quite general questions were broadly positive, and that's a really good thing. And that actually has links to the second stage question survey, which we'll go on to shortly as well. So some broadly positive results. The one thing that stood out there were some higher numbers of 9 to 11 and 12 to 16-year-olds stating that they feel anxious, which warrants further analysis. And once we've run through the further analysis, we hope to explain a bit more about why that might be the case. So there was an issue there around anxiety, which I think bears some further analysis. We also asked what had the single greatest positive benefits to well-being in the town. And by and large, the most common answers there when it came to the young people who were responding were physical well-being is very important. So there's a lot of evidence that shows that physical well-being and physical activity has a real impact, positive impact around mental health as well. But many were saying that the most important things for them were things like places to spend time with their friends and family, probably not surprisingly, but also sports centres, green spaces. Green spaces came out very prominently, and walking and cycle groups as well. So walking with others, cycling with others was very important, which I think was interesting. I think it was interesting there was such a strong sense around physical activity around mental health and well-being as well. So when asked about what helps mental well-being, again, this came back to the same sort of things I've just mentioned, but library was important, and community, chance to spend time with young people as well and communicate with young people. It comes back to a lot of what's happened in the last few weeks, where if young people have felt cut off from their schools because they've been homeschooled, a lot of something very similar about having to keep in contact with friends. And I know my daughter uses FaceTime every so often to speak to some of her friends at school, and she's found that invaluable, because without that she wouldn't have had that contact at all. And I think that can have a very negative impact on health potentially. One of the other notable headlines is approximately half of those who responded, around about half, said they don't use or visit community clubs or organisations. So those are formal set up clubs or organisations. So often they're saying it's more informal groups that are meeting rather than those formal clubs or organisations. So I thought that was an interesting outcome of that particular survey. Both of those key age groups, we sort of divided it roughly into 9 to 11-year-olds and 12 to 16-year-olds, were very clear about what they liked about living in Newmarket. They felt that the common areas for improvement were having enough suitable activities to do, which is what I've said around, sports opportunities, sports clubs, green spaces. There was also a perception of antisocial behaviour and crime in the town among some young people as well. Again, we can come back to that in a bit more detail, but that broadly was borne out by the second stage survey as well on connected communities. And that's something I'll come back to in a few moments. So, common elements of improvement were having enough suitable activities, and we can do some analysis around the first stage survey around physical activity as well, which would link into this one, and the perception of antisocial behaviour and crime in the town. And I think that's one of those things that would bear out some further analysis, looking at who's responding, which groups have said that, and what specifically they're saying. So that's something I'd like to come back to, given a little bit more time to do that. So just moving on, the second stage survey, connected communities, we invited residents to take part in this survey between September and October 2019. Around 283 people responded, which we felt was pretty good. 290 people responded in the first survey, so very similar numbers. What we're asking is about what voluntary and formal support is available to avoid things like social isolation, loneliness. We asked about crime and antisocial behaviour and other things that around the physical environment that can have a positive and negative impact on local communities. 78% of respondents, so vast majority, rated their satisfaction with life nowadays from 6 to 10. So that's on a 10-point basis. So the majority felt that there was a positive satisfaction with life nowadays. And as I said, that was very similar to the young people's survey as well. So all of that is very positive. And it bears out a lot of the work that is happening within the town already. And I wanted to say earlier, it's one point that I didn't say, this work isn't being done in isolation by any means. We're hoping that the results of the surveys will inform local work, but also link into existing work around the neighbourhood plan, for example, and the youth strategy that I know you're working on as a council, supported by people like Will Wright. So a lot of this information is feeding into those pieces of work, and we're hoping that they will help inform some of the work that's already taking place in the town as well. So back to stage 2 survey, 53%, so over half of respondents, said that they felt lonely often or always. Some of the time, so there is a potential issue around isolation, which I mentioned earlier, and on top of that, a third of the under 25s reported feeling lonely often or some of the time. So the interesting thing about that is that's similar to national work that's been done with a YouGov poll last year, 2019, of more than 2,000 UK adults, and that found a similar amount, around a third of 18 to 24-year-olds said they felt lonely often or all of the time, compared to 17% of over 55. So this idea of this younger age range reporting feeling lonely is something that's come out quite strongly from the survey work that we've done. And that has suggestions around, again, some of that opportunities to spend time with their peers or others. And it's just something I think we should consider as one of the key headlines. We asked if people felt that they belonged to their immediate neighbourhood, and there were some sub-questions with that around opportunities to spend time with friends and family. And I'm focusing on some of the negatives here, but obviously you flip that around. So 39% said not very strongly or not at all strongly when asked if they felt they belonged to their immediate neighbourhood. So turning around the other way, 61% said they did. But I think if there's things we want to pick out and focus on, there is that sort of, substantial number of people saying that they didn't feel they're connected to their neighbourhood. 83% more positively said they would agree or definitely agree if they needed help, there'd be someone there for them. So they feel there is that support locally, so that's positive. And similarly, 81% said that they agree or definitely agree if they wanted company or to socialise, there are people that they can call on. So again, that's very, very positive. Only 27% take part in volunteering activities. So that could be formal or informal volunteering. So that's a little under a third. Now, it'd be very interesting to see if we did this now, whether the number of people or the percentage of people volunteering may have increased in the light of recent weeks. It's something we can't know. But when we carried out this survey, 27% took on volunteering activities in one form or another. The amount of time involved with volunteering varied from 30 hours a week to around 2 to 3 hours, so that really varied. And only 32% belong or volunteer with a local organisation. Then when we move on to general satisfaction with Newmarket, 59% said they were fairly or very satisfied with Newmarket as a place to live, which again is very positive, but 23% said they were fairly or fairly dissatisfied. 35%, so over a third, said Newmarket had, in their perception, had high or very high levels of antisocial behaviour. So again, that comes back to that point that was mentioned in the previous headline that I picked out. And 29% felt Newmarket had high or very high levels of crime. Now, again, I should say this is a perception. So this comes back to that sort of old adage, it's fear of crime as well as the true nature of crime and antisocial behaviour. So this is a perception from the people who've taken part in the survey. And 38% said Newmarket had very low or low levels of neighbourliness and community spirit. And then when asked if they felt they belonged to their immediate neighbourhood, 39% said not very strongly or not at all strongly. So it's interesting, there are similar numbers. It's likely to be the same people who are replying, because they're roughly in the sort of 30 to 40% of those who've responded. So again, we can do more analysis to pick out in terms of who's responding, where they're responding, with a bit more detail around that. So they're just a few of the headlines, and they're broadly summarised in the paper that I submitted, and I appreciate time is now running short. So what happens next? There is a dedicated working group who will continue to scrutinise the information coming out from the survey and to coordinate our action plan. And as I say, that's not intended to stand alone, that's intended to feed into other existing work in the town. We're meeting in about 2 weeks' time. We've paused because of coronavirus, but we are meeting in a couple of weeks. We're going to continue to develop our approach to the 4th stage survey, as I've said, but we'd like to work with Town Council and others to help devise the topic for the 4th survey. So much has changed between the original plan and now. It'll be very interesting to see what focus we want to give to that. And we'll happily continue to provide future updates on progress with this work, which we have done over the last few months. I've come and presented on the latest feedback from the surveys. But we'll happily do that as and when required. But as I say, I think there's a really good opportunity in the autumn to come back and give us a bit more focus, look at some of those specific areas and bring out some more of the detail around the survey. So I appreciate that's probably more than the time I've been given, and apologies if I've run over
Chris.
it, happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That was slightly over your allotted time. And I hope that the outcome of this will be that we're free to meet as a town council just with this one topic, which will allow a lot more time. So at this stage, if there can be brief questions about anything you're not certain about to Chris. Anyone would like to ask a question? Well, it looks like, Chris, you've dumbfounded us all with the list of statistics. Okay, well, I'm going to move from the chair that we do, in fact, hold a special town council meeting. It will be one topic. Chris won't be speaking the whole time. It will be very much involved about discussions and what we can do as a council to improve the health and well-being of our residents. So it's a topic that is very important. Chris O'Neill.
I'll second that.
That's seconded. And Chris O'Neill as well. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
The only question is then whether we decide the date now, or shall we agree in principle and then perhaps with the new town clerk agree a date at a later point. Okay, I think I'm going to take it that way. So the proposal is that in principle we hold a special town council meeting in the autumn, and with that date to be confirmed. Is that's seconded? All those in favour?
Okay.
Okay. Anyone against? And any abstentions? There we are, Chris. Thank you very much. You are invited to come back in the autumn. We'll let you know soon what date is convenient for the majority of our councillors, or all our councillors, I hope, and we'll fix that up. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me this evening. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 6, which is public participation. Now, I'd like to make it clear to all our members of the public, and we're very pleased to see you all, that this is the opportunity where you can speak either about an item on the agenda or speak about anything else, but you cannot speak later in the meeting. This is the only opportunity you have. So please don't delay if you think you might have an opportunity to speak later. I can't allow that past this public participation section. So I don't know, who has indicated that they would like to speak? Deborah, have you Do you know at this stage?
I know one or two.
I can see that Mr. Harvey's got his hand up. So shall we start with Mr. Harvey?
Well, I wonder whether we just understand who does want to speak. So we know
Okay.
Mr.
So,
Harvey wants to speak.
Mr. Harvey, who else?
Mr. Young would like to speak. Mr. Warren would like to speak. Sarah Beckett would like to speak, and Alison Harvey would like to speak.
Meaning Alison Hayes.
Hayes, sorry.
Right. Anyone else?
Yeah.
You won't get a second opportunity.
I'd
Can I speak as well, please?
Sorry, who was that?
It's James Teal.
Oh,
I put my hand up.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's important. Do pester us to make certain we've got everyone. Can
I'd
you
like
read
to
the
speak
list
as well.
again?
Please.
Is that Douglas? Do you want to speak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy at the end if there's time left.
Deborah, can you read the list? I'll make that 7, I think.
hang on, I'm still scribbling the list. Yes, that is 7, unless we've missed anybody. So that's Mr. Harvey, Mr. Young, Mr. Warren, Mr. Teal, Mr. Hall, Alison Hayes, and Sarah Beckett.
Douglas.
Yes, Douglas, Mr. Hall.
Right. I hope you've got that list in front of you. I wrote as quickly as I could, but didn't get all those names. So we're going to start off with Mr. Harvey. Please, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Chair. Apologies. I'm going to read what I've written here to try and whiz through. Okay. Introduction of long-awaited civil parking enforcement to reduce dangerous and obstructed parking. Great. Impact on residents without reviewing parking restrictions or within an overall parking strategy. Not so great. You'll be aware that there's parking stress in the streets immediately surrounding All Saints car park. So that's All Saints Road, Park Lane, Park Avenue, Queen Street, Granby Street, Green Road. And basically during the day between 8 AM and 6 PM, if it's strictly enforced, there is virtually no on-street parking for several hundred households within the immediate proximity of the car park. And I've just got an update. There is a 1 hour restriction that runs along All Saints Road for about 30 cars. West Suffolk have come back to me and confirmed that they do intend to enforce that. So basically there is virtually zero parking now. And there are 100 houses down All Saints Road. The only option that West Suffolk have offered residents is a so-called discounted car park permit of £250, which mathematically you could argue isn't actually a discount given the current occupancy of the car park. Effectively, it's 100%. So that's no discount at all. It's unaffordable. There are more people staying at home due to being on furlough, working from home, retired, unemployed. This was the case before this enforcement, and this now accentuates the issue. The restrictions around the area are way over the top. There are loads of streets which are wider than 20 feet, which is wide enough for a car to park and an emergency vehicle. Why are there so many restrictions around the area? I can only imagine that the car park was deemed to provide mitigation for residents in the particular area. So why isn't there proper provision in there? The pocket car parks, there are 68 spaces. There's a waiting list of at least 18 people on the pocket car parks. That's before you try and deal with all the people who are now displaced. Where are they going to park? They won't be able to afford £250 for the car park permit. They'll go into the neighbouring streets. Now people in neighbouring streets won't have any place to park. This situation is unacceptable. West Suffolk have to provide some short-term remedies for residents. They have to look at a longer-term solution. The response I got today from West Suffolk was basically they feel that they have to enforce the regulations that were in place before, according to Suffolk County Council. They haven't reviewed any of the parking restrictions, which are absurd. I came across correspondence I sent to Forest Heath District Council in 2004 and 2006, highlighting these specific issues. I've seen loads of West Suffolk reports, reviews. All these issues have been raised umpteen times, and they have made little or no progress on them whatsoever. So I hope I'm speaking to the converted when I would ask the Town Council to strongly communicate with West Suffolk to ask for immediate remedies for residents.
John?
Yeah, for residents in this intolerable situation, and a long-term sensible strategy. I've got a list of suggestions that I'm quite happy to forward to councillors at a later stage.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And I will bring forward, or well, I'll propose that we bring forward the car parking debate up the agenda.
Brilliant, thank you.
And Mr. Young next, I think.
Okay. Firstly, can I thank Deborah, the acting town council manager, for all of her work that she's done, especially over the last 3 months. She's been amazing, very professional, and certainly has been an asset to the town. And I wish her well for the future. I want to bring to your attention item 21. I was intrigued why it suddenly appeared on the agenda tonight. The Freedom of Information request, an explanation of the procedure which resulted in a confidential finance and planning working group meeting being circulated. Well, it obviously wasn't confidential, otherwise it would never have been released into the public domain. Ironically, I made a Freedom of Information request to see who had requested this item to be added to the agenda and the reasons why. It was no surprise that the request had come from Councillor Hood. She quotes the reason being having meetings in private. The rules governing council business are perfectly clear. Yes, the council can have meetings away from the public in private, but those meetings are still governed by the same rules and laws as public meetings and are still covered by the Freedom of Information Act. Councillor Hood brought this item to council tonight for one purpose only, as I see it, to act as a distraction, to try and deflect attention from her terrible behaviour and actions during that particular working party meeting. Her actions that night have breached the members' code of conduct. It is my opinion she has certainly breached parts 4 and 5.1 and more besides. What about Councillor Hood's obvious private meetings or conversations with Councillor Drummond and Lay prior to that meeting, and the obvious collusion involved? Again, a breach of sections of the members' code of conduct on the night in question. If Councillor Hood really wants to be pedantic, she should check her own declaration of interest forms. She has omitted John Gosden LLP, Newmarket Commemoration Committee Limited, and what is the National Heritage Centre for Horse Racing and Sporting Art. I thought that was called the National Horse Racing Museum. I would like a full inquiry into the behaviour and actions of the 3 very senior members of Newmarket Town Council, Councillors Hood, Drummond and Lay, with regards to their behaviour. Not only Councillor Hood's continual disruption during the meeting, but to include their collusion regarding going into the meeting with a closed mind and what actions they were going to take prior to the commencement of the meeting, and their blatant disregard to all democratic process and the complete lack of respect through their actions shown to Newmarket Town Council. Its elected members, its officers, but most importantly, the public they are elected to represent. They should be ashamed of their actions that night. They have brought this council into disrepute and severely damaged the public confidence in it. Hopefully, this type of behaviour will not see a return to what happened this time last year in May, when the town council mayor at the time...
Mr. Young.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think, is it Mr. Warren next, Deborah?
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to raise the issue as brought by Mr. Harvey regarding parking in the surrounding streets for the High Street. He's quite well put my feelings on that. I am making a petition and going around local residents in respect to a call for resident parking zones, and certainly hope that the councillors will make representations to West Suffolk Council in support of such actions. I mean, I have actually inquired as to the cost of such schemes for residents. In West Suffolk themselves, there are numerous schemes in place which are significantly less in price than the current discounted fee for parking in the likes of All Saints car park, with some including areas such as I think Victoria Street area, where the annual fee for the first permit is around £59 and a £79 for a second permit. So it definitely needs to be looked into for residents, because we are largely being unfairly penalised. And I think that's everything I wanted to say for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. And as I say, the car parking issue will be discussed immediately following public participation with councillors' agreement. Mr. Teal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I tried to unmute him at the same time as he muted.
Sorry. Yeah, so thanks for allowing me to speak today. This is the first council meeting I've actually spoke at, so please do bear with. This is basically reflecting a couple of comments already about parking. So I live down All Saints Road, and I've done so for about 9 months now. So I'm just going to read something out here very briefly. So this is very unlikely to be news to you since it has been published in the Newmarket Journal very recently and is something which has been discussed but not implemented in the past. I'm referring to the lack of residential parking across Newmarket, particularly roads such as All Saints Road where I currently live. As a relatively new resident, I'm disappointed that that is and has continued to be a significant lack of residential parking, and that only very recent enforcement of restricted parking down these roads, leading to fines, including myself unfortunately, has led to a high degree of interest from residents in having this issue resolved. I suspect, however, that there was a high degree of interest in the past, but this has waned since parking regulations weren't strictly enforced for some years. I have to use a public car parking space, e.g. space technically for shoppers, with a £250 annual ticket, which I can afford, but not everybody can. A reasonably priced annual resident parking scheme would be much better for all. It is up to you, however, to look at the details and push this forward at county council level. How many residents and how often are those residents going to be fined for simply wanting to park down their roads where they live? How is the town council going to support its residents in raising and resolving this issue at county level? I understand it can take up to 2 years for parking schemes to be implemented, but I'm sure residents would be patient enough to allow a scheme to be put in place within this timescale. When are you going to act? This affects so many of us who live here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Teal. The next speaker is Alison Hayes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening even. Yeah, I just like to, it's a parking issue, but it's not to do with All Saints Road. I just wanted to address the council on parking in St Mary's Square. With the advent of civil parking enforcement, I'd hoped that the problem of residents who drive their vehicles across the pavement to park on the grass in St Mary's Square might be addressed by traffic wardens. Apparently not, unless they are caught in the act, which would remain a matter for the police. It appears their actions are beyond the remit of wardens because, and I quote, there is a pavement between the grass and the double yellow line on the road. My concern is that St Mary's Square is in the conservation area. The vehicles are steadily defacing a precious green space in an otherwise built up area, and the drivers can only be a danger to pedestrians because they're driving across a pavement. The houses they occupy are only yards from the Turner Hall car park, which is free in the evenings, and there is parking at the rear of these properties. It seems unfair that residents parking outside their homes in some streets in the town, like All Saints Road, are now being ticketed, while others, who are quite obviously parking where they know they shouldn't, appear to be able to do so with impunity. St Mary's Square is looking increasingly shabby, and this haphazard parking, coupled with litter, weeds, broken rails on the horsewalk, and the current state of a prominent listed building, is only adding to that rather sad state. Solving the town's current parking issues is not going to be easy and throws up a number of issues. Perhaps the District Planning Authority now needs to consider more carefully applications for houses in multiple occupation, and whether landlords proposing to use properties for several tenants should be granted a licence if they can't provide additional parking. Even if residents' parking zones came in, how would those properties operate if parking permits were limited to 1 or 2 per household? Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. And we've got a picture of that. That clearly is a slightly different parking issue, and I'm tempted to refer that to the next Community and Leisure committee so that we can have a separate discussion about St Mary's Square. If councillors are in agreement with that, that seems the best way of dealing that, and that is only next week, rather than conflate it with the car parking issue that is residents parking in the All Saints area. So hopefully that will be okay. The next person to speak, I believe, is Sarah Beckett. Is Sarah there?
Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you. Following a resident drawing attention to the fact that working group meetings were recorded, I find the whole matter of the meetings held in March, April and May under the guise of working groups confusing. The calling of these meetings and the understanding that councillors might have had of the nature of the meetings is of concern, and it is clear that during them the procedure and actions were not clarified to councillors. And I wonder why there was a need to rush through the recommendations rather than hold properly convened council meetings when legislation allowed for this within a matter of days. I've heard the Mayor say many times that he's in favour of working groups because it allows councillors to talk frankly, openly, honestly and directly away from the public and constraints of a committee meeting. Newmarket Town Council's working groups or meetings that were conducted like a workshop meeting can clearly operate without terms of reference and are recorded without knowledge and then put in the public domain. Minutes from the first meeting in March state the acting TCM opened the meeting and ensured that everyone was connected to the call and advised that the meeting was being recorded. What was actually said before all councillors were in attendance was, the plan is to record it. This was before the meeting started. When I inquired about the recording of the meetings, I was told it was evident that the meeting was recorded because of the red light on the screen showing it to be so. I question if this was apparent to all, as this was the first virtual meeting of councillors, a very new experience, and it wouldn't have been obvious for those calling in by phone. What was the point of recording meetings of this nature, I wonder? Certainly not to make sure the minutes are correct, and as the world is getting back to the new normal, I hope that the council will be transparent in its operation and not reliant on a little red light at the corner of a computer screen to inform councillors of procedures. It is evident to the public that there are divides within the council and the good work done in previous years will be forgotten. The public have been critical of councillors in recent weeks. Yet what is wrong with councillors ensuring that procedures are correct for the type of meeting they are attending? Councillors give freely of their time, which is really valued and should not have to be concerned about the details of administration of a meeting. The value of any working group type meetings is now publicly in doubt, and meetings of that nature should not proceed. Openness and transparency is paramount. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll briefly comment on that. I, as the Mayor of and Chairman of this Council, will always seek to be open and transparent wherever we possibly can. I think Mike's on record that I do like working groups because they are task and finish groups. You set them a brief item to investigate and come up with an answer as a recommendation to the committee or council as appropriate. And as regards our Zoom meetings, I don't think any of us like them. We're having to carry on with them until we have guidelines that we can, in fact, go back to our Memorial Hall, which I know we would dearly love to do so. And we're doing the best we can under these rather difficult situations. So thank you, Sarah, for your comments. And finally, Douglas, would you like to speak to us?
Yes. Sorry, I was just trying to find my notes. I'm sorry, I did promise you I wasn't going to talk, but I obviously don't keep my promises as I'm not a councillor. The Town District Council and Newmarket Vision meeting minutes for years have been littered with references to parking issues and residents parking. Astonishingly, the District Council did a survey of residents in 2014 as part of an on-street parking investigation, and the question of residents' parking zones wasn't even asked. Newmarket Vision has had 13 meetings since the residents' parking consultation in 2014. As recently as 2018, issues were raised about residents' parking as a result of civil parking enforcement coming into play, and there was talk of a comprehensive parking strategy that has apparently failed to materialise. There is a colossal failure of the various councils to actually get stuff done in this regard. If I may be so bold as to suggest it, that the town council, and this may be controversial with previous comments, set up a parking working party with a couple of residents from affected areas to join it and come up with some viable options quickly and canvass local residents to find out what has the most support and work with district and county officers and councillors to actually get something implemented. We've all seen with COVID-19 how quickly councils and people can move when they need to suggest this might take up to 2 years when it is affecting residents now is a complete nonsense. Finally, I wanted to point out that residents' parking permit for Cambridge, one of the most notoriously anti-car cities in the region, is only £62 a year, and yet West Suffolk Council think it is entirely acceptable for residents to pay £250 a year for a season ticket to use the car parks when they have no alternative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Douglas. And I now propose, I'm assuming there are no other people wishing to speak. So I propose that we move item...
Mr Mayor, sorry, Councillor Jeffrey, sorry, Alison Baton has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Alison Baton, is that?
Yeah. So you just like to mute yourself, unmute yourself.
Hello, is that working?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand up to start with, but I did want to agree with the parking thing, that it says that an annual or 6 monthly season ticket is discounted compared to the purchase of a standard weekly ticket. But at £250, that is still a lot of money. And a lot of us have to have 2 cars. It all adds up. Residents really should be getting a bigger discount, because it will, if it's less money, more people are going to be willing to pay it, and it will help with the parking on subsequent streets, because everyone is going to move away from All Saints Road if we get ticketed there. That means that we'll go Warrington Street, Stamford Street, all those other streets. And yes, parking, it just doesn't make sense to keep it so high when, yeah, we can all come to a compromise, really. So I just wanted to agree with my fellow residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Appreciate that. Well, as I say, I propose that item 15 is moved up the agenda to be the next item on the agenda. That is seconded. All those in favour, please.
Okay.
Okay, against and abstentions. Okay, so we'll go to item 15 on the agenda to discuss residence parking zones, CPE, can't think for the moment what that is, and it's
parking enforcement.
Parking enforcement, that's right, and car parking generally. Who would like to start us off? Councillor Drummond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it was I that actually asked for this to be on the agenda. What I would say is that I've been speaking to Mark Walsh, and I have triggered the need for us to investigate resident parking zones in Newmarket. Sadly, he tells me this could take 18 months to 2 years, and I feel that's unacceptable, but he puts it down to the fact with COVID there are staff issues, and he highlighted to me what needs to be put in place. So the traffic regulation orders need to be put in place, signage, lines and admin, and that's all after a consultation has taken place to establish which streets want it to opt in and which streets would want to opt out. The lady, Alison Baton, you mentioned about the costs of the car park. What I would say is you've got to understand the difference between off-street parking and on-street parking. So resident parking zones would be on-street, and the off-street parking in West Suffolk car parks is a slightly different thing. It might solve people's immediate problem, getting themselves a permit for a period of time. But what we really want to establish is some parking zones where people can pay, and you've heard there, it could be £50 to actually park their car, not necessarily outside their house, but certainly in the street that they live. And what I would like to propose that we, and I've asked Mark if he would be happy for us to get this started for him. As you can appreciate, the survey would have to be redone by West Suffolk, but I would like Newmarket Town Council to send a questionnaire out to all of the residents in all of the streets where we think it's likely that they would benefit from a residence parking zone. We maybe also at the same time in that questionnaire establish what they would be willing to pay in some bands. Some people might want to pay nothing, others might be prepared to pay up to 50, others up to 100, so that we can give some good feedback to West Suffolk to get this done much quicker than 18 months to 2 years. So West Suffolk are kind of, because of the CPE, which basically is civil parking enforcement, they do it now on behalf of county. So it's really West Suffolk that are in the driving seat on this, but they have to go through some specific sort of, gateposts, if you like, to actually put this in place. And I would like us as Newmarket Town Council to do everything we can to shorten that period of time. And I think that's doable by having this particular survey I'm suggesting.
Okay, Councillor Drummond, is that a proposal?
It certainly is.
Okay, what I'd like to do is deal with this proposal, not end the discussion, because I think there may be some other issues, but it seems to me we may well agree with that. First of all, is that seconded, that proposal seconded, that we do a survey, and that's seconded, I think, in 2 places. Now, do you want any discussion on that? Or should we put that to the vote, and then that's not the end of the item, we'll come back. Councillor O'Neill, is that okay?
Yeah, I was just going to say I felt we should have a working group with residents and discuss the issues properly. And if we come up with a consultation, a paper to go out to residents, it should be made by the Town Council working party with residents involved.
Okay, so that's sort of an amendment, isn't it? So you're saying set up a working group which will carry out the consultation. Is that what you're saying? Councillor Hood.
Time is of the essence here. And it seems to me, if we're not careful with working groups, we've all seen this one way and another, it can take a long time. It's very clear to those of us who are new West Suffolk councillors that there is a need to sort this out appropriately. So I personally think a working group, unless it's meets this week and comes up with this paper this week, it is going to take too long. I'd ask Councillor Drummond what he thinks. We need to get on with this immediately.
Thank you. Well, I would accept both. I feel that we would have access as a council, whether it would be through the electoral roll or we just write to the occupier of each address, and certainly have some kind of committee or working party working in parallel to that.
Chair, I'll take Andrew. I'll take the Town Council Manager and then Councillor Appleby.
Oh, I just wanted to make the point that if you're going to do a survey, you need to be very clear about what the survey is going to ask and how that's going to be put together. And I think if you want to move quickly, you're then expecting officers to do that. And I do really quite strongly feel that you need to be including some of your engaged residents in the way that survey is designed. And that's where your working group becomes invaluable in helping to do that. And you can still move fairly quickly. You could organise a meeting for this week, and sort of work perhaps Mr. Harvey with interested councillors and anybody else who wants to be involved to devise a questionnaire that can then be put together on SurveyMonkey or some other similar, and a paper survey to be delivered, whatever. I just think it's a lot. You're just expecting officers, and bearing in mind that my last day is tomorrow and your town clerk doesn't start until the 13th full time. I wonder whether the working group is a better way forward.
Well, thank you, Deborah.
Accept that.
I'm going to take Councillor Appleby first. Andrew.
I think we need a more comprehensive review. It's not only residents, we've also got to consider commuters and visitors. And this problem has been around for certainly, when did parking charges come in? Was it 2006?
2004.
2004. So the problems emanated from there. It's been 16 years, and it's basically a perfect storm has been gathering, which CPE, and I don't disagree with CPE. Illegal parking, not least, can be dangerous. But we've got this perfect storm, and it needs to be considered holistically.
Councillor Drummond, do you want to come back? We need to move this forward. What do you suggest?
Yes, well, look, we've got two proposals that are quite similar. I take on board what the acting town council manager has said, so I'll accept Chris's amendment.
Okay, so we're going to set up a working group. I would like a chairman of that group because it's going to be key to getting it organised. So who would like to volunteer? Chris O'Neill, you happy to volunteer? Thank you very much, Chris. So are you okay with that, Andy?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but I'd like to see people like John on it as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Can we have your hand, John?
So what now I'd like to see, and there can be other people, this doesn't have to limit it, who would like to be on this working group? And that includes our members of the public who are there. So we've got Councillor Diath, we've got Alison Bayton, we've got Neil Hughes, we've got Councillor Councillor O'Neill as chair, and John Harvey, and Councillor Appleby, and Warren.
Please, Mr. Mayor.
And Councillor Holbert, I think that was.
Yes, that was, yeah.
And Jamie Maguire. So that's quite a lot. You'll
I
need
think John, sorry, Mayor, I think Councillor Border has his hand up.
I'm sorry, John. You want to be on that committee, that working group? Okay, that's Councillor Border.
I did put my hand up as well, my virtual hand.
And Councillor Bowen. That's quite a big working group. I would suggest no more. Yes, Town Council Manager.
I can see two hands up, James Teal and Craig Warren. I'm just wondering, are you wanting to volunteer to be on the working group?
Yes, I think that was the case. I don't know about
Yes.
James.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't have their names written down.
Thank you,
I
Deborah.
don't want to be pedantic, Mayor, but we do need terms of reference for a working group, unless it's not really a working group. We need to decide.
The terms of reference, we can come up with terms of reference, is to consult residents about parking in All Saints particularly, and it's about devising a comprehensive car parking policy. Councillor Drummond. Councillor Drummond?
Yes, I think, yeah, sorry, I muted myself when I hadn't realised I was unmuted. Apologies. I think it needs to be all of the streets in Newmarket that have Victorian terrace properties.
Yeah.
Alison Hayes is on the call, and she mentioned to me that there are issues, in the street that she lives. So Mill Hill. So there may be other areas. I wouldn't just restrict it to All Saints. I know that Park Lane has problems. So we have to look at many
I
streets.
agree with Andy Drummond on
Right,
this.
such a big job.
I've got problems around my area also.
Thank you, Councillor Holbert. Have we got a wording for the terms of reference that's going to be adequate? I think.
I am busy scribbling.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Neill, how are we going to manage this? You'll get a list of names from the minutes. And what I think everyone who's volunteered needs to provide an email. I think that would have to be the case, won't it?
Yeah, could everybody, you'll be able to find my councillor email address on the website and on the town council website. If everyone could email me their contact details, and I'll get set up and we'll organise when we can have a meeting, or to the town council manager.
Well, I think it's probably better to go
Best to me, yeah.
Yes, okay, so everyone who isn't a councillor and wants to be on this, if you could email Councillor O'Neill using his councillor email address, which is councilloroneill@newmarket.gov.uk. Is that right? Yeah. That would be extremely helpful. Have we got a wording?
So the words I've drafted are to consult residents about parking in all streets where on-street parking is an issue, and to devise a survey and to develop a comprehensive response to the parking issues.
Is that all right, Councillor Drummond? Councillor Hood?
Yes.
Well, I just think we ought to add some kind of timing in there. I know we'll all be trying to get it done, quickly, but you know, there needs to be some sense of urgency, because we've all seen things that start off well and then nothing ever happens, and something needs to happen.
The report back to the next town council meeting?
Yeah,
absolutely.
The report back to the next town council meeting. That may not be the end of it, but an initial report.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope everyone has understood that, all councillors that is, and indeed members of the public, because I think I'm going to put that to the vote without any further discussion. Okay, all those in favour of setting up this working group with the terms of reference as spoken?
Yes.
And anyone against? And abstentions? I think everyone was in favour. I'm struggling to see everyone's voting, but I'm hoping acting council manager, you're managing to do it better than I am. Okay, thank you very much for all your participations on that. I think we've got a way forward, and let's see if we can move the whole issue forward. We're going on back to item 7 on the agenda, which is council reports. So do we have any reports from, first of all, county councillors?
Yes, I'm happy just to report. Yeah, just to, I mean, my report has been, the report for May was sent out. The one for June won't be ready till I think the day after tomorrow. But just to say that everyone will have received the report on children's centres. That's number 1. Number 2, Councillor Drummond and I are working hard on trying to be able to put in place a plan for opening the recycling centre in due course. It's quite a process, but we're working on that. And those are the 2 main things.
I wish you success with the recycling. We are, it's in our deeply in our hearts. Okay, Councillor Drummond, yes. Is this county or district?
This is county, yeah. I'm working on a project to make some improvements to Snailwell Road as you turn in from Fordham Road, where there have been complaints about the width of the horse walk. It was made too wide. There are plans to put it right when the gas main is relayed. I'm doing some works onto the path on the opposite side for the protection of pedestrians.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Drummond, I was slightly distracted. There was an email coming in. District councillors, anyone wish to? By the way, Town Council Manager, did you see the apologies from Councillor Lay?
Yes, I did.
Right.
Yes.
Any other district councillors wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Anderson. Unmute, Michael, unmute yourself. Bottom left.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes, it.
I do have a response for Mr. Hall's correspondence letter on item 20B, and that also includes a part of the ward reports, which I'll be speaking then.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Anyone else on District Council? Yeah, Councillor Drummond and Councillor Kirby wishes to speak, but I'll take Councillor Drummond.
I believe you should have all received some comms that I organised from Sally Easom of West Suffolk. I can't remember if I sent them or Deborah sent them, but hopefully that addresses a number of it's very Newmarket centric about what's going on at district level.
Thank you, Councillor Drummond. Councillor Kirby, you wish to speak? Councillor Kirby? Unmute.
Just district councillors, really. I can see that we have Councillor Drummond, Councillor Anderson, and Councillor Hood. Councillor Lay has sent his apologies. We have 2 other district councillors who I don't know. One of them who was elected in January, as I know, has never presented herself to Newmarket District Council. She is supposed to be a representative of Newmarket at district council level. I don't know if any of our district councils have ever come across her, had any dealings with her. I don't know what she is doing for Newmarket. I understand that she gets the agendas for our full town council meetings, but hasn't had the decency to even attend one or let Newmarket town councillors know who she is. And I just wonder if the town council manager even the new one, could actually send her some correspondence to ask her to attend and ask her how she is representing Newmarket on Bury St Ed on the West Suffolk District Council, because I think she seems to think that she represents Bury St Edmunds more than she does Newmarket.
Okay, would you like to make that proposal, Councillor Kirby?
I would, thank you.
Okay, is that seconded? That's seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Anderson, did you wish to speak?
Yes, please, Mayor. I'd like to say on behalf of County Councillor, District Councillor Karen Soons, that she's heavily involved with my area, and she gets involved in everything. So she's very well known up here.
Okay.
Yeah, and can I speak to
Councillor Hood and then back to Councillor Kirby.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd wanted to speak to my ward report, but I can also confirm that what Councillor Anderson has said, that Councillor Soons is an unbelievably active councillor in her area. And it may be that she's just assuming that Councillor Anderson is conveying information or whatever. But I'm not quite sure what the proposal is, but I'm sure she'd be happy to come and talk to the council if asked.
My understanding of the proposal is that it's a request for her to come to the council and give a district councillor report. Councillor Kirby, to sum up, please.
Yeah, it's more of a case of, I fully agree with Michael, if she's helping out, but it would be nice to know, as a representative of Newmarket, that as a district councillor, she just has the decency to inform Newmarket Town Council how she's representing Newmarket. She may well be doing lots of good stuff, but I just think she was elected to Newmarket to represent Newmarket. It would have been nice to just to present herself to Newmarket Town Council so councillors knew who she was.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby. We've had a proposal. It's been seconded. I won't have a discussion on that.
Chair?
Yes, Councillor Appleby.
I would say that one can't necessarily demand.
No, it's a request.
Yeah, but I think just a polite request rather than a formal request would be more appropriate, if I may say so.
That's fine.
Yep. Okay. So, sorry, it's a request, yes?
Yes,
yeah,
that's
a
all.
polite request, not a formal request. So
no,
I'd ask Councillor Kirby to perhaps withdraw his proposal.
Yes, I withdraw.
Okay. The proposal has been withdrawn. Councillor Drummond.
Yeah, I would just say that Karen is also a district councillor and a county councillor, and I know she's very active with her other, parishes. It may be that she's attending another meeting tonight.
Okay. Well, Councillor Kirby is going to contact her, I understand.
I'm not going to contact her, no. But if she's busy with other meetings, it doesn't stop her over the last 6 months to not once attend the Newmarket Town Council meeting to present herself to us.
Okay, so Councillor Kirby's request still stands. It's still seconded. It is a request that she comes to a meeting of the Newmarket Town Council to give a report on her district council activities. All those in favour, please. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are you counting, Deborah?
No. Sorry, I'm emailing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 that I can see. I can't see Councillor Appleby, and I can't see Councillor Holbert, and I can't see Councillor Hurst.
Ollie Bowen is voting in favour.
Yeah, abstain.
Peter's abstaining.
Those against, please. And abstentions. Well, I think there's one abstention there.
There are 3 abstentions.
So that's carried. Thank you very much. Ward reports. Does any councillor have a ward report? That's Councillor Hood and then Councillor Yarrow. Councillor Hood.
Yeah, I'm actually doing the report as a district councillor. I just wanted to let everybody know that in light of the fact that this council, DNP, voted unanimously to oppose the McDonald's application, not least because it's on the children's playing field at George Lambton. And I know we will get to it in these minutes, but I want people to know that I've requested a meeting for the district councillors with the planning department at West Suffolk to take them through the neighbourhood plan, because if nothing else, I believe we all think that they rejected or they failed to apply the neighbourhood plan. So it's very important, I think, to have a meeting with the planning department at West Suffolk and make sure that the next time they're presented with an application, if nothing else, at least they will be taking our neighbourhood plan seriously, you know, not least because the mayor and I and others have spent 5 years working on it, and we think it's a good document. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hood. Councillor Yarrow.
Just to report that there have been further instances of fly tipping in the flat area of Iceville Hill Flats, in the garage areas rather, of Iceville Hill Flats. But I'm pleased to say Flagship Housing responded immediately on both occasions. Haven't been able to stop the problem. However, they're undertaking to do twice weekly checks of the Iceville Hill Flats, both for fly tipping and indeed to check out for drug paraphernalia in the public areas of the flats. So we're getting good cooperation from Flagship. That's good.
Okay, thank you very much. Reports from town councillors on outside bodies.
Excuse me for about it. Does the mayor have any reports himself to make?
My reports. That's the next item on the agenda.
Sorry.
That's the next item on the agenda.
Just clear this one. Okay, I don't think anyone indicating to speak there, so we will move on to item 8 and Mayor's announcements. Well, I clearly understand that under current conditions I don't get out and about all that much visiting, doing my civic functions, but I did write a letter to the commander of the 48th Flight Wing at RAF Lakenheath to offer our condolences with respect to the accident leading to the death of First Lieutenant Kenneth Allen. I now write a monthly column for the Newmarket Flyer as under the heading, I think, Chainmail. And I have joined with Paul Brown, the bid manager, to promote the independent retailers in Newmarket. Councillor Kirby, do you want to add anything as Deputy Mayor? Okay.
Mayor, do you think we could we all be sent a copy of your nice letter to the in relation to that sad matter you mentioned?
Yes, if you'd like that.
We emailed it, then we could see what it said. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, was that to request a copy of the letter that went through to Nick?
Yes.
Yes, as I say, I would like to see.
Okay.
That letter.
Send that out to all councillors.
Yeah. Okay. I will send it.
Will you do that, Deborah?
Yes, I don't have the signed version though, because you printed it off and posted it.
So the email version, yeah?
Yeah.
Because I did post it. I sent it by post. Okay, we're moving on to item 9.
It would be nice, obviously, if a copy of that letter would be sent to all councillors.
Yes, I am going to do that.
Let's do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll now move to the development planning meeting. Councillor O'Neill, you're vice chair in Councillor Caesar's absence. Can you present those minutes, please?
Yes, certainly. I present the minutes of, just let me go back to the agenda. I'm here to present the minutes of the development and planning meeting held on the 22nd of June 2020 and seek their adoption.
Thank you. So we need to consider any recommendations. Page 1, there aren't any. Page 2, there are no recommendations. Page 3, there are no recommendations. And page 4, there are no recommendations. Page 5.
Can I ask a question on that, please, in relation to McDonald's matter?
Yes.
Because at that meeting, it was said that we would revisit that at this meeting and take a vote on it because it's such an important matter.
Okay. I do remember it was agreed that that would happen. So we'll take it under sort of matters arising of those when it's the McDonald's application. Who wishes to make a proposal?
Well, I do.
Councillor Hood?
Yeah. So for those people who aren't on the Development and Planning Committee, and those who were will know that there was a unanimous vote to oppose the McDonald's for several reasons. One is that we believe absolutely that this McDonald's breaches the neighbourhood plan, both at I think policy 32, but more generally, because we are supposed to have improved entrances to Newmarket, and this certainly doesn't do that. There's no recognition at all of the town itself, and it is a bog standard McDonald's that won't improve the area. And the reason that the planning officer recommended it on that basis was he said, this is a horrible industrial area, so what if you get another unappealing addition to the entrance to Newmarket? That was number one. Number two, we were told that that nobody would come off the A14 because there weren't going to be any signs from the A14, and therefore, you know, the traffic problem that is completely disastrous at certain points, including ambulances and police cars having to get out of that Willie Staith Avenue at rush hour times. We were, you know, we were very unhappy with the highways information. And the third thing, which I think it's fair to say, but the mayor will correct me if I'm overstating this, was that there was no reference to the fact that this McDonald's fast food outlet was located, you know, on, or you could say adjacent to the George Lampton playing fields. And this, you know, we've heard about the health of our residents and our children. We know that there is an obesity epidemic. And it seems a very disappointing place to locate it. In any event, having taken some legal soundings, we discussed at the meeting that for a cost of £10,000 we could bring a judicial review of the McDonald's because of all of those things, and at least get through to the point where the matters before action had been taken care of and a judicial review was filed. So that's the explanation. Sorry, it's a bit long, but people just need to understand. And we took a vote about whether this should be, whether we should pursue a judicial review. I wasn't particularly advocating one way or the other. I was just explaining to people. But I guess I'm happy to propose that we should pursue a judicial review against this McDonald's and allocate funding for it, in light of the fact that we believe it breaches the Newmarket neighbourhood plan and the public health issues I've described and highways issues. And I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. First of all, I need to know if that's seconded.
Okay.
Councillor Holbert seconding it.
Councillor Holbert is seconded. Councillor O'Neill.
I was just thinking up a point of order. Before, didn't we have an issue when we were trying to make proposals on items on the agenda, so matters arising? I'm not actually sure we can do that.
Okay, well,
It's not an item on the agenda.
No. Are you on the D&P committee, Councillor O'Neill?
As you would have heard, I propose to accept the minutes because I'm vice chair.
Yep, okay, sorry. So I don't know what the mayor wants to say about that. That was what was discussed at the meeting, but if people don't want to do it, you know, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just trying to make sure that we deal with something that...
I just don't think we can chop and change the rules to suit.
Well, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to follow what we agreed at the original meeting, which you attended.
The situation is this, that at the original meeting, a proposal was put, as is recorded in the minutes, and it was defeated. It therefore did not become a recommendation or indeed a resolved item for the council. And as such, it is not therefore, Councillor O'Neill is correct. I understood the sentiments of the meeting were that we would be able to discuss it. So I'm going to be going to the town council manager in a moment for some arbitration on this. Councillor Drummond.
Well, it's there in black and white in front of you on page 5, the very last half of the sentence. It was noticed this could be reconsidered at full council. I think we've given ourselves a dispensation in this particular case.
That does clearly state it. You're right, Councillor Drummond, and I'm prepared to accept that because I can remember the conversation. What I'd like everyone to understand, I'll speak on this, I try not to speak too much. I think there are issues here. This was first put to the planning group committee on the 20th of April. We're talking a long time ago. Councillor Lay was the chairman of that committee. And whilst we all opposed the McDonald's for the reasons that Councillor Hood has described, we perhaps didn't make our case strong enough at that point. And that is our failing. And we need to make certain that where we feel strongly about something and we have legitimate reasons for that, that we are able to explain those reasons clearly. It feels as though we're now trying to bolt the stable door after the horse is bolted. And the implications of this proposal going through will be a significant cost to the council. We've had a quote of £10,000. Whether that is accurate or not, I do not know. But it is something that all councillors do have to consider very carefully. However much we are disappointed that West Suffolk Council have not listened to our views, this judicial review is something that this council actually has never gone down in terms of planning matters. So we don't know what the implications will be. Councillor Diaz.
Could I just understand the other side of the argument as to why some councillors didn't want a judicial review? I understand why some did. I don't understand why some didn't. Was it just money?
Yes, just money. And not feeling that we would be successful. It's very doubtful that we would be successful under the, well, I can't say that. I was worried that we would be unsuccessful. The other councillors will have to speak for themselves. Would anyone else wish to speak on this?
Yeah, could just
sorry, town council manager.
Yeah, Councillor Caesar isn't here, obviously, but just remembering what she said, she felt that it was it would be difficult for the town council to take to judicial review an application that the majority of the community would be in favour of, and it would be difficult for us to justify spending a large sum of money on that basis. So I'll tell you what she said.
Thank you. Yes, I was thinking that Councillor Caesar wasn't here and she had spoken eloquently against it. Anyone else wish to speak?
Could I just say a few words, please, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councillor Holbert, a few.
Yeah. The thing is on this, with McDonald's, when you have a look at people where you can buy food and drink to take away, I think we've got enough in Newmarket. There is 45 outlets in Newmarket where you can buy a drink or buy something to eat where you walk away. What do we want another one for? Especially where it is, when you first enter the town, you're coming into Newmarket, you're greeted with this McDonald's on the corner. I don't think it is right. It makes the town, well, in my opinion, it makes the town look cheap. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Holbert. Anyone else wish to speak?
Yeah.
Councillor Appleby.
Yeah, I'm going to make myself unpopular possibly, but I think the district council decision is sound in fact and law. Possibly we can mitigate, and certainly we don't want their totem pole, but possibly mitigated by suitable landscaping. but I don't feel it's a case that one could win by judicial review.
Thank you, Councillor Appleby. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, I'm going to put this to the vote. Councillor Hood.
Vote, please.
Councillor Hood has asked for a named vote. Councillor O'Neill.
I just wanted to say there's a vote on this. Councillor Hood's asked for a recorded vote. We're going to vote on this, but people don't know what they're voting on. You don't know. You're saying a judicial review, it could cost. We don't know. A minimum of £10,000. It's a ridiculous thing to say that we're voting on something. You want a recorded vote, and you don't know the amount a judicial review could cost. Just nonsense. But that has to be in the proposal, up to a certain amount.
Well, Councillor Garrow, did you wish to speak?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay, sorry, I thought I saw you indicating. So you're moving an amendment, Councillor O'Neill?
Yeah.
And what is your amendment, please?
Well, I would ask that there is an amount of money that we're talking about if we're voting on spending a maximum. I don't know what a judicial review is, what it could cost. I'm just aware of the goings on over Hatchfield Farm. The judicial reviews called over that, and all the different reviews went on 3 times. God knows what that cost. And I hope it wasn't public money.
That's okay. So just going back to, I mean, I'm not pushing for this. I'm just explaining that I have been informed that a judicial review could cost up to £10,000 to. You have to go through a sort of letter before action. You have to get the document drafted, and you have to file it. And then at that point, you know, who knows? You may go to court. They're dealt with pretty quickly, judicial reviews. You have to file them within 6 weeks of a decision, and then you get a decision as to whether it can proceed very quickly, you know.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hood. The crux of this really is we're all, I imagine we're all against the McDonald's place, but it has been given planning permission by West Suffolk Council. And the issue is whether we should be spending council taxpayers' money on a judicial review. I think we've probably discussed this enough. I hope everyone understands the issues.
Sorry,
Council Manager, we need...
Councillor O'Neill had suggested that we set a monetary limit. And I wonder whether, do you have a proposal, Councillor O'Neill, for that amount, an amount?
No, I think there should be an amount in there, but I do not have an amount because I won't vote for it. I'll be voting against because I don't think it's.
I don't think you could set an amount. It's an all or nothing situation.
Well, I think the other point is to take into consideration is whether the council actually has the budget available to cover the cost of this, and perhaps our finance manager could help us out with that.
Kathy, could you like to suggest where it might come from?
Sorry, you're breaking up, Kathy.
No, my connection.
I don't think we're going to get Kathy's view on this. I'm going to have to put it to the vote.
Shall I say up to a cost of £10,000, and then people have got some.
Okay, we'll take that as into the consideration. So the proposal is that we seek a judicial review with no greater cost than £10,000 to overturn the West Suffolk Council decision on the McDonald's planning application. I hope I've got the wording right there. It was seconded by Councillor Drummond. I assume that's still correct. Please be ready to vote. How are we doing this, Town Council Manager? Are you going to write down the names as you see the vote?
Well, I think it might be easier if I just go through the councillors alphabetically. I'm just making.
In that case, you should say 4 if you are in favour of the judicial review, and you say against if you are against the judicial review.
Or if they're abstaining. So I'll just.
Or abstaining.
if I can go through and make sure that I've covered off everybody. Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, Caesar and May. Okay, yeah, so if I can just go around. Councillor Appleby.
Again.
Councillor Anderson.
Abstain.
Councillor Border.
Abstain.
Councillor Bowen.
Against.
Councillor Diath.
Sorry, against.
Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
I'm against it.
Councillor Drummond.
For.
Councillor Jeffries.
Against.
Councillor Hood.
For.
Councillor Kirby.
Against.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Against.
Councillor Holbert.
For.
Councillor Yarrow.
Against.
Councillor O'Neill.
Against.
Have I missed anybody? No. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 against. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 in favour and 2 abstentions. That's not carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. I think that finishes the development planning minutes. We're going to go on to the finance and policy minutes, and I am pleased to present those minutes as chair of that committee and seek the adoption of the recommendations. And if we go through those, we do have the recommendation on page 2, which was about the schedule of payments. We have a recommendation about the kiosk on page 3. We have a recommendation about setting up a working group to look at the risk management scheme on page 3. And there is a recommendation on page 4. And I would like to refer that back to the Community and Leisure Committee. I mean, or it could go to F&P, but it might as well go to Community and Leisure. I just think it's a little bit hasty to sell some of this equipment, and I think further consideration would be appropriate. Our town keeper said that he would find the strimmer useful at times, and so I think this needs to be reconsidered. So I'm proposing that this item is reconsidered by the Community and Leisure Committee at their next meeting. Is that seconded? And that is seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All those in favour of deferring that to the Community and Leisure meeting? I'm sorry, my words are failing me as this meeting has progressed. Thank you. Can you vote now, please, if you're in favour of deferring that?
1, 2,
3, those against?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Thank you very much. I think that's carried. Okay, that will go on to the next agenda. Okay, we now move on to item 10, and it's the terms of reference for our 2 new committees. Remember, this is a trial. We will review this after 2 months. So you have the Community and Leisure Services, and it's in your pack. It's pages 28 and 29, your pack, and 30. And the Neighbourhood Plan Committee, which is also in your pack, page 31. So we need to approve those. Can I have a proposal, please? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. That's the proposal that we do approve these terms of reference. That's seconded by Councillor Yarrow. Any discussion on this? All those in favour, please vote now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Okay.
9. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
And against? And abstentions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. 11 is committee membership. And that's on page 31 of your pack, 33 of your pack, sorry. 12 people have gone for community leisure, 10 for neighbourhood plan.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Drummond, you wish to speak.
I think we have missed the neighbourhood plan terms of reference.
Oh, sorry, I did include that, but I'm happy to go back if you wish to. I included both together.
Okay, I beg your pardon, then.
I think, thank you. So membership there, we just to approve the committee membership. Proposal?
Sorry, Councillor Jeffries, can you hear me?
Yes, Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, I would wish to be a member of both groups. I don't know why I was left off.
Okay, now we can do that. If you wish, anyone wishes to be put on, we can do that tonight. Councillor Hurst added to both.
Can I just come in there and respond to Councillor Hurst? We did attempt to contact you on numerous occasions and in numerous different ways to ascertain which committees you wanted to be on, but we just ran out of time after numerous attempts. We hope you'd be here tonight so you could give us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hurst is included in both.
And Councillor Bowen as well. I don't know if he's got a preference.
Councillor Bowen, did you want to be on?
Deborah, that I'm on it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right, thanks, Deborah.
Councillor Bowen?
Yes, please, yeah.
On committees?
You're not talking to me, are you?
No, I'm talking to Councillor Bowen.
Right.
Sorry.
Sorry, I said yes. I'm not sure if my microphone's working. Can you hear me?
You can now, Ollie, yeah.
It's just
okay.
saying yes
Sorry.
to both committees, Councillor Bowen.
I think that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
All right, can I have a proposal that we accept these? Someone propose? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. And Mr. Councillor Kirby has seconded. All those in favour, please show now. And against? Right, thank you very much. We're now on to the notes of the coronavirus steering group. There are 2 weeks to look at. That's the 9th of June and the 16th of June. Once again, I will thank all the volunteers and the people who answer the phones and the volunteer network who have done such sterling work and continue to do sterling work on that. And indeed, our members of staff are answering the phones now more often. Can I have I will move that those are noted as chair of the steering group. Is that seconded? That's seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favour? And against? Thank you. That's carried. We now move to the draft model code of
coronavirus financial update, Councillor Jeffrey.
Oh, sorry, I managed to do 2 ticks. I was so keen to get ahead. Yes, but can Kathy speak to us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hello, Kathy. What can you tell us about the costs?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not hearing you, Kathy. You're completely breaking up.
Are there any questions? We might be able to answer any questions. There's not a significant change in that, is there?
No, there's 2 or 3 additional items at the end that have come on in the last month. So the Zoom
that is in effect what 3 months worth of costs are associated with the coronavirus.
Yeah, and there are 1 or 2 items that have yet to be invoices that have yet to be processed. For example, we've agreed to have some posters printed, which are now being distributed.
Okay. Yes.
And the deep cleaning of the Memorial Hall prior to staff starting back in the building today. That is an agenda item further down, but those have yet to show up on there because they haven't been processed through the invoices.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah.
Do we note that? I think we have to note that, don't we?
Yeah, it's just been.
Can I have I'll propose that we note that. Is that seconded? Okay. Can I see all those in favour, please? Thank you. And anyone against? Thank you. I will now go on to the Code of Conduct. Right, I'm just getting myself ready. Town Council Manager, help me out. What are we going to do with the Code of Conduct? Clearly it's there in front of you. It's very important. Some wise words.
So the draft model code of conduct has been prepared nationally by a number of different organisations, including led by the Local Government Association, the National Association of Local Councils, the Society of Local Council Clerks, and the governing body for monitoring officers have all been involved in this process. And the intention is to try and strengthen a code of conduct so that could be introduced nationally, and to try and help to raise standards of councillor behaviour across the board. Bullying is rife in our sector, and this is an opportunity to try and help to manage that, apart from other, and there are other issues. So we're being encouraged, very strongly encouraged by the Suffolk Association of Local Councils to engage in this process. So there's the draft has been included in your agenda pack, the draft model member code of conduct. And earlier today I circulated a PDF of the questionnaire that you would, as a council, being asked to complete. And I wondered whether it might be a useful way to sort of try and pull together a response, as perhaps for 2 or 3 councillors to look at it perhaps together, and report, make some suggested comments on the consultation to report back to the next meeting perhaps. You've got a little bit of time. I think the deadline is August, so there's not a major rush. And there's also in the agenda pack is a link to the actual consultation.
Okay. 3 councillors to look at this. I suppose effectively we're talking about a working group, the dreaded working group, in which the terms of reference are to recommend a response to the questionnaire on the code of conduct, the draft code of conduct. Okay, so it's a task and finish group, and they'll report back to the next town council meeting. I'm happy to be on that. Would anyone like to join me?
Yeah, I'll join you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleby. Anyone else? One other person. Councillor O'Neill. Okay, so we'll have a small working group of myself, Councillor Appleby, Councillor O'Neill, to look at the...
And Councillor Kirby was volunteering too, I think.
Oh, Councillor Kirby, you're welcome to join us. Thank you. And we'll look at the questionnaire. There is a link there, so if we can all individually look at that, and then I'll send out emails about how we move forward. So that's a proposal, isn't it, that we set up a working group. Is that seconded?
Can I, sorry, I can't say.
Council Manager.
I just wanted to make sure that we had clear terms of reference.
I did say that. I said that it's to respond, to come up with a response to the questions of the draft code of conduct. That's all we've got to do.
Okay.
And report back to the next town council meeting.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll propose that. Is that seconded? Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? All those in favour, please. And those against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. We have done the car parking, so we can move on to item 16. We've received reports from Councillor Yarrow. We've received reports from Councillor Hood. I would like Councillor Yarrow and Councillor Hood to be fairly brief. We've hopefully all read what you've said, and time is ticking on. I realise it's an important issue, but Councillor Yarrow, if you go first, and Councillor Hood, again, you may reply. Councillor Yarrow.
Right, I will be brief. As town councillors, our remit is to act in the interests of the town and not any other interest group. So when I sent out my facts sheet, I did not try to discredit other councillors' views, and I sent them out on Friday in order to give you the opportunity to digest over the weekend. Now, this morning we received Councillor Hood's comments, and I hope you all had time to digest it. It would appear that my facts are based on ill-informed, inaccurate and political briefing papers. The reality is, of course, my political briefing papers came from Suffolk County Council. Now, we've learned, and I'd be delighted if that is actually the case, and I have to quote here, that Foley House is to become a full-time family hub. But as I read this, I'm looking at Appendix A from Suffolk County Council, 2020, their review, and it reads, a part-time family hub will offer opportunities, and it's relating to Foley House at the top of the list. It reads, a part-time family hub offers opportunities for our partners to deliver services within the current children's centre. So this is the first time any of us have learned that the family hub will become full-time, and therefore one hopes that the children's centre will remain full-time. It's a shame we weren't told about this before. And I'm not altogether certain actually of the veracity of these briefing notes which Councillor Hood has sent us. It reads now, full-time family hubs 17 and Newmarket, Foley House is suddenly second. Prior to that, Suffolk County Council has said there are 16 full-time family hubs, and Foley House is one of the part-time. Now, I would like to seek assurance that that is the case. I won't go any further. I could. There's a lot of answers I could give, but I would like assurance that Foley House is not going to be cut as was suggested. That is part-time, half-time. And to be safe, at the end of this, I would like to make a proposal which we put forward to Suffolk County Council. I'm acting now as a town councillor. Our remit, of course, is to act in the interests of Newmarket, so I shall focus on Foley House in this particular case. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to give the resolution now, or you want Councillor Hood to respond to that?
I don't mind. I don't mind, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got nothing else to say
I
after
think
this.
it's probably right I respond first, isn't it?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because thank you, Councillor Yarrow, and I'm sorry I couldn't get my papers in until today. That wasn't intentional. I think we're all on the same page. We all want the best for the town. We all want family hubs to be providing you know, workable, positive outcomes for everybody. And given that I now know rather more about this than I did when Councillor Yarrow brought it to our attention, it would seem to me that, or at least I now know that the Children's Centre matter is going to Suffolk County Council Cabinet. I want to say this month, but it must be next month.
Oh.
And
14th, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering whether, to keep a very beady eye on all of this, we should, I mean, we don't want to come up with a vote that is either based on wrong facts or makes us look as if we're not 100% sure about everything. So what I'm thinking is, but you know, I'm happy to say, should we put it on the agenda for the end of July? I mean, if you want to have a confirmation that, say, Foley House will be as described in the paper that I put in, you know, a full-time family hub, and that we revisit at the meeting, the first meeting following Suffolk County Council's cabinet meeting, or words to that effect, then I don't have a problem with any of that. So
Could I ask Councillor Hood a question?
Yeah.
Where did you get that information telling us that the family hub in Newmarket is going to be full-time and that it will not be at the cost of the Children's Centre?
Yeah, I got it directly from Mary Evans, who is the Suffolk County Council Cabinet Member for Children's Services.
I know who she is, and I know she's the architect of this, but the question is, when did you get this information? When did she have this information, and why were we not informed? Because as I speak to you, I'm looking at Suffolk County Council's website, and their proposals and their review, and it still states that Newmarket Foley House is going to become part-time, and I quote, and it will offer opportunities for our partners to deliver services within the children's centre space. In other words, it's still saying publicly that we are going to be, that Foley House is going to be cut. So I can't trust what she's saying.
Okay,
We've got no evidence to the contrary.
I'm going to let Councillor O'Neill speak, who's got his hand up. There may be an opportunity for you, Councillor Yarrow, to say something along the lines of, we are delighted to see that the hub at Foley House is going to be full-time. Something along those lines. Sorry, I'm making up as I go along.
And you could say, if I can just add, sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but I have, as confirmed by Suffolk County, you know, if you want to make me responsible for this information, which I've got directly from the Cabinet member, I'm perfectly happy for that to happen.
I think, if I may, Chair, I would still want to, my resolution would have to say that Newmarket Town Council would object to any potential cuts that might be imposed on the Children's Centre in Newmarket. I don't trust what I've just heard. I trust my figures and my research. So
okay,
I would insist that we my
Shall we come up with some wording? Councillor O'Neill and then Councillor Drummond.
Sure.
And then we'll take your proposal, Councillor Yarrow.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I've read extensively information on this, and my understanding is that the Children's Centre will become part-time, but Foley House, the space, will be used full-time more as a family hub. And the idea is that the Children's Centre closure part-time will be the slack will be taken up by pre-existing community groups. I would like to make a resolution because I think one of the biggest problems in society and with young families, young parents, is isolation. And I don't think visiting them in their own home helps in any way, shape or form with that. I think isolation is a problem. It talks about the villages being cut off so people could go there. I think that's, and people can visit people in their homes because they're in the villages, they can't get into town. I think that's part of the problem. What they need to do is, instead of closing Children's Centre in the town, actually think about public transport and how they can bring that back and reconnect the villages with the town. So I would propose that this town council does not support that Newmarket Foley House Children's Centre becomes part-time and it maintains its full-time status.
Okay, before anyone else speaks, just a minute, Councillor Yarrow, I'm going to have to pause the meeting to suspend standing orders. So bear with us. I propose that we suspend standing orders because we're going to go over 2 hours. Is that seconded? Thank you. And can I see all those in favour, please, of suspending standing orders? Thank you. And so we're now suspended standing orders. We can go over 2 hours. We've had a proposal from Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Yarrow, and then, sorry, Councillor Yarrow, before you say, I did say to Councillor Drummond, and then it's Councillor Yarrow. Councillor Drummond.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to confirm that I had an email from Mary Evans, who is the portfolio holder, on Friday, so that was before this report was prepared, that confirms that Foley House is going to become a full-time family hub. So
thank you very much, Councillor Drummond. Councillor Yarrow.
Well, I'm delighted actually that the Conservative Council is actually listening to us. I hope they are. However, if Councillor O'Neill could just repeat his proposal, I think there's some mileage in it.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, Councillor O'Neill, and then I want to wrap this up.
Yeah,
I'd like to speak after.
Okay.
I propose that, I mean, it could be good news. It's a family hub, but I believe that might be different wording for what they want to do. I would just like the Town Council, I propose that Newmarket Town Council does not support the part-time closure of Foley House Children's Centre for provision for under fives.
And I second that.
I second that.
And we write to Suffolk County Council to inform them of our request to keep it open full time.
Councillor Hood, I'll let you reply to that as the county councillor.
Yeah.
I'm then going to put it to the vote unless someone's desperate to speak. Councillor
Yeah,
Hood.
I mean, I'm allowed. Thanks. I'm allowed to reply because there's a.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And anecdotally, in response to Councillor O'Neill's comments about transport and what have you, the worst thing for families is fathers who don't pay money to support their children and their ex-partners. That's what causes so much deprivation. But just going to what the Children's Commissioner for England has said, she has said a commitment to family hubs is a commitment to giving children in need their families the tools to transform their lives and to reduce family breakdown, to give children the best start in life and improve social mobility. Yes, I'm speaking, Councillor Yarrow, and so we have been told that the proposals by Suffolk County Council are in the best interest of children. And I think we will be making ourselves look fairly foolish to vote on the proposal that's been made, because the reality is that there is, as you will have read in these papers, very positive proposals going to Suffolk County Council and in the near future. So I certainly will be voting against what I consider to be a sort of embarrassing nonsense.
Thank you, Councillor Hood.
If I could just speak.
Go to the vote.
May I speak, Chair?
Yes, Councillor Arrow, but briefly, please. I'm sorry.
Very briefly, yeah. Of course, the Children's Commissioner did make that statement in 2016, but no doubt councillors would have read all the material from the Children's Commissioner, which I submitted to them, and that was written in 2020. And yes, she endorses family hubs. Yes, she endorses children's centres, but she does not endorse family centres, family hubs at the expense of children's centres. And she stresses the importance of caring for families for beneath 5 years old. That's all, thank you.
I would like a repeat of the proposal that has been seconded, and then I intend to put it to the vote. Have we got, so can someone read out the proposal?
Can I speak desperately, Chair?
Yes, Councillor Appleby.
In a brief scan through Councillor Hood's pieces and Councillor Yarrow's, it seemed to me that the intention was to use sort of community centres. So I presume they're thinking about things like the Studland Social Club, which would be more convenient for families on Studlands to go to, and using these outline posts. And similarly in villages, I'd assume they would use community centres there. So it isn't necessarily completely bad.
Okay. The resolution, I believe, was that we regret the closure of the Children's Centre at Foley House. Sorry, and then I can't remember.
Can I help you here, Councillor Jeffrey?
Yes, please.
I have written down
Good.
the proposal by Councillor O'Neill, and it says that Newmarket Town Council does not support the reduction of service to part-time of Foley House Children's Centre for the provision of service to under fives.
Thank you. That's simple.
Vote. Sorry to.
Yes, we can have a name vote if our town council manager can prepare us for a name vote. We're hoping everyone understands this. If you're voting for, you're voting that we send a letter to Suffolk County Council, hoping that they will not make the Children's Centre part-time. Is that right, Councillor Yarrow? Have I got that right?
In effect.
In effect, thank you.
I think it's written, isn't it?
Are we expressing a hope or a wish? Or?
Oh yes, I think it was a bit more positive than that,
Yes,
wasn't it?
I'm failing you.
Councillor O'Neill expressed it, and I think the town manager wrote it down.
Yeah.
Repeat it once more time, town council manager.
Okay, so that Newmarket Town Council does not support the reduction of service to part-time of Foley House Children's Centre for the provision of service to the under fives.
Okay, I hope everyone's clear. So if you're for, you do not want the service to be reduced. If you otherwise, it's against or obviously abstain. Are we ready?
It might be easy. We're going for a named vote. I'll just ask councillors how they vote. It's the easiest way to make sure I haven't missed anybody. Councillor Appleby.
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Councillor Anderson.
For.
Councillor Border.
For.
Councillor Diaz.
For.
Councillor Drummond.
Abstain, thank you.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Hood.
I'm abstaining.
Councillor Kirby.
For.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Against.
Councillor Holbert.
Jasmine, you're not against.
Oh, sorry. For.
Sorry, Councillor Holbert.
For.
Councillor Yarrow.
For.
Councillor O'Neill.
For.
Councillor Hurst.
For.
Councillor Bowen.
As I've got warm blood in my veins, I vote for.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 in favour with 3 abstentions.
I'd like to apologise, Deborah.
That's fine, no problem. I've got you down as in favour. So yeah, that's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. We now go on to item 17, speed indicator device. We did get a report, I think it came this afternoon, with, actually it's a detailed report. If Kathy is listening, the Elizabeth Avenue one, the poll is outside number 39, not number 35. But I think we note that report. Any discussion on that? Okay, I propose that we note it. Seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Reopening plan.
Yeah, so we have a number of things just to update councillors on. I sent out earlier this afternoon the risk assessment and a report. Obviously, government guidance has changed since the last time we considered this. And last time we met, we decided that it was too early to open the memorial gardens, but the guidance has changed, suggesting that we can now open the gardens. I would like councillors to consider whether they think it's appropriate to do so, given the specific circumstances of the gardens itself. They are of the view that play equipment can be opened to public access.
Okay, views of councillors. Anyone got a view? Should we open the memorial gardens, including the play areas? Councillor O'Neill.
I don't believe time is right to open the play areas at the moment. The memorial gardens, being an open space, I think would be fine, but I just don't think children can use the play areas yet. I just don't think it's right.
Councillor Yarrow.
Well, actually, if the memorial gardens themselves were open, I can't see that one can keep the children out of the play areas. So I think it has to remain closed.
Councillor Anderson and Councillor Drummond.
If and when we do decide to open the play equipment, is it not worth getting a safety check done on everything because it's been out of action for a long time?
Oh, we would be doing that anyway, Councillor Anderson.
Okay, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Drummond.
Thank you. Well, I believe I'll get a seconder, so I propose that we don't open the play area or the memorial hall quite yet.
Okay, and that's seconded from Councillor O'Neill. Any further discussion on this?
Can I suggest that we put a time frame to review that, please?
Well, you either go to the next council meeting or you go to something.
Well, it's a month, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Cycle.
So Community and Leisure Services meets next week, or you've got full council.
Soon, doesn't it?
But they wouldn't have delegated powers to open it, so it has to wait till next council.
Next council, yeah. I can't see how you can do it other than next council.
Okay.
Okay, the proposal is that we do not open, and the decision will be reviewed at the end of July, which is Monday the 27th of the Town Council. It has been duly seconded. Any other Does anyone else wish to speak?
I just note that apparently cricket's not going to be allowed at present, so I would say that that's less dangerous than open the Memorial Gardens.
Okay.
I might be biased, of course.
Okay, all those in favour then of the proposal that we do not open the Memorial Gardens?
Yeah, I agree. Do not open.
Okay, and can I see those against, please? And abstentions. Thank you very much. There's also in your pack the report, the quote from ICE, isn't it, about the cleaning?
Yeah, and the reason I've included that is because the delegated powers to the town council manager are expenditure up to £1,000, and this was expenditure that needed to be agreed before there was an opportunity for council to meet. So the three options that were considered were circulated to councillors, and agreement sought that this would be the most appropriate company to use. And I just wanted to bring it to council so that it was noted on the agenda that this had been consulted on with councillors and would fall under sort of an emergency expenditure because it needed to be completed before staff started back in the building, which was today, was the first day. Although one of our staff members is shielding and has received to say that she will have to continue to shield until the end of July. But in addition to the work that's been carried out for the deep clean, we have also now appointed a cleaner through CRIM, the recruitment company, who started this morning, and he will be doing 3 hours cleaning 5 days a week for the time being.
Okay, we need to note that, do we?
That's just for noting, yeah, it's just for information.
Okay, lovely. Any questions about that? Okay, let's move on to 19, the Guineas. I spoke to the Guineas manager well, I think it was a week ago. He assured me that he wanted to open up the Guineas, but he has to follow the guidelines, the government guidelines, and the only way he can do that is the restrictions that he's put in place. I phoned him this afternoon, and he says that they'll be making a decision on Wednesday about what they're going to do in the light of the new guidelines from...
Okay. Can I also say something, please, Mr. Chairman?
You can, but yes, please. Peter.
Sorry, the Mayor. Sorry, Nick. Obviously, on this, what I understand is that now that you've been reduced now to 1 metre, there's no reason at all why you could open this near enough immediately. Because there was apparently Paul Brown was on Cambridge Radio this afternoon, and he said we should really now be opening. I hope so, because this is causing a lot of problems. Still people in Newmarket coming in and out of Newmarket. If you're going up the high street, you cannot go into the banks from the front. You've got to go in from the back. And if you had those doors open halfway down, it would make it damn sight easier. A lot of the retailers there are still complaining that it's cut down the people that go into their shops because they cannot be bothered to coming into Newmarket with all the hassle that they are having at the moment. So I hope he can open them up as soon as possible. He can do it now. I don't know why he doesn't. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter, Councillor Holbert. The situation is simply government regulations, government guidelines, and the 1 metre plus starts from the 4th of July.
They can open that up because the simple reason is it's the only one of the Guinness sort of thing that have got just a one-way system.
Councillor Holbert, I promise you they're not trying to make things difficult for the sake of it. They would love to. They've got to follow government guidelines.
A lot of those retailers down there, and you see what they have to say. That is obviously, that is, with my view, what I hear. But we should listen to some of the people. You know, listen to the butcher, not the shopping block, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holbert. We're going to move on to item 20. We've had some correspondence. We have a very nice letter from our MP about our helpline. We have a letter from Mr. Douglas Hall.
Was the letter from Matt Hancock included?
Yes, we have it in our pack. It was page 63 of the pack.
Okay, thank you.
You make me one.
Okay, Councillor Hall, Douglas Hall is on page 65. And we have another letter, a long letter from Mr. Ian Young.
Which I think I perhaps would like just to make a couple of comments in relation to, please.
Okay.
Okay. So just to reiterate that the working group was not properly constituted. We could have had an F&P meeting properly noticed and wrong information was given out about voting. So I think it's appropriate. Oh, and as far as the FOI was concerned, as the Mayor knows, he has often said that working groups are a place where councillors can discuss matters behind closed doors, as it were, a matter of which I don't approve, as I put in my communication to the acting town council manager. I believe we should have had a properly noticed working group, a properly noticed F&P meeting, and that if we weren't going to have a properly noticed one, we should have had proper terms of reference, which it's been confirmed we didn't have.
I think that's disputed, but Councillor O'Neill.
I'd just like to say that when the then Mayor, who was Councillor Hood, proposed it, that we have that working party, perhaps she should have set out clearer terms of reference, and I would hope she would in the future. And the main problem with that meeting was nothing to do with the terms of reference. It was the behaviour of Councillors Lay, Drummond and Hood, and the fact that Councillor Hood,
with
on
respect,
several
I
occasions,
don't think
excuse me, I'm talking.
Must let Councillor O'Neill speak.
I see. Okay, I'm happy to. It's not appropriate, of course.
Yes, now you're not Mayor, you can't stand up
Please,
and shut people down. So, the main problem with that meeting was Councillor Hood, on several occasions, voted for two other councillors who were present at that meeting and sat like puppets.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Anderson, I think you wanted to speak.
Yes, please. It's in response to Mr. Hall's letter.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a couple of items here. On the ward reports, I hold my hands up here. I'm not very quick at giving out ward reports. I will clean my act up and give more reports more frequently. At the moment, things are a bit slow with the COVID-19 issues, and hopefully things will start getting through a bit quicker. As far as surgeries go, in the past, myself, Councillor Holbert, Councillor Hurst and other town councillors have held very successful surgeries, and we will hold more surgeries when it is safe to do so. Listening to the Residents Association on my ward has been very successful. It's a very successful way to engage with the community. We've achieved a great deal over the last 5 years since I set it up, and it's well attended by all councillors. And lastly, a lot of the work carried out by councillors are private issues, and we do not put them in the public domain. I can assure the residents that all councillors work very hard for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anderson. That's very valuable. I believe we also had correspondence about the Wetherby crossing. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I just wanted really noting in the minutes that we've had a letter from the inspector confirming the inquiry that was scheduled for the 28th of July has been postponed for a date in September yet to be confirmed. This is on the basis that obviously we're struggling to gain access to some of the premises that hold information, such as public record offices and libraries, and also the people that we gathering evidence from need to be engaging with, and who wish to attend the meeting would struggle to do so under the current circumstances. It is hoped that the inspector can be persuaded to still hold the meeting at the football ground. I've been at the club, in the clubhouse. I've been communicating with Rachel Wood, who suggested that there may be an opportunity. We may still be able to hold it at the football club. We may be able to get appropriate sort of social distancing measures in place. And I suggested that perhaps that's something the events manager and the Newtown clerk could go and view the premises at the football club to understand whether it would be possible to put the appropriate social distancing measures in place and still continue to use that as a venue, because that would be far more convenient and easy for those who wish to the most for them to be able to participate. And the other thing is that I have today received correspondence from the County Council. I think I sent that out this afternoon, just advising that they would be unable to assist financially with the inquiry, because their monitoring officer had advised that they couldn't do that. But they have also clarified that an officer of the definitive map team could be made available to act as a witness at the forthcoming public inquiry if our advocate sees fit to call upon such support.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any of that? Let's move on then. Item 21, freedom of information requests. I think Councillor Hood, you requested this.
Yes, because I was, I think the acting town council manager has told us that working groups can be recorded without people being told they're recorded, and the content of those recorded working groups can be circulated in response to a freedom of information request. So I'm just clarifying that.
I think that's yes, isn't it? I mean, the obvious thing is that we now have the facilities with the Zoom meetings to be able to record things, and as that makes for accurate reporting, it makes sense that we do record. And I do apologise, because I think I didn't say that it would be recorded at the beginning of the meeting, so great apologies there. That was not deliberate. Any comments to Town Council Manager?
Just the point that the F&P working group, there was no content of that meeting that was confidential.
Yep.
So it was.
Sorry, Town Council Manager, I'm cutting.
It was a valid freedom of information request. So there was no justification to refuse it. I provided all of the relevant rules around freedom of information, and there was nothing confidential about it.
Okay.
And sorry, just to clarify, and that it's all right to record meetings without telling people, I presume, because that's what happened there. Just so long as we know, then we can all act accordingly. Could you just confirm that it's all right to record meetings without telling people?
It's written in the agendas, isn't it?
Well, and that's what we're trying to find out. Is it all right just to write it in the agenda, or do you need to say it? Well, I don't know what the answer is. I'm asking.
In an ideal world, Councillor Hood, we would make certain that everyone knew exactly what was going on. Sometimes errors are made, like tonight, where I forgot to say it. But I think we've done extremely well in these Zoom meetings. We've managed to keep the council moving, going in the right direction. And the meetings have been long and they're hard, but we have done extremely well. And if we haven't done everything perfectly, I'm afraid that's the nature of the game. Councillor O'Neill, very briefly, please. It's getting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what we should do is always assume that the meeting will be recorded. As Zoom meetings are recorded, that's brilliant. And I would hope we look to record all meetings in the future, because it helps clarify situations. And if we assume that all meetings are recorded, then we can behave accordingly.
Thank you. I'm going to move on.
I'm happy with that. I think that's fine. So long as we know that we don't have to say they're recorded, that's fine. And actually, Councillor O'Neill is right. It's been extremely useful having recorded meetings because there have been various mistakes and omissions from minutes that have been able to be corrected. So it's probably the way of the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
If only we had it before.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Item 22, Code of Conduct. There are 3 Code of Conduct reports in your pack. I don't see any point in having long discussions about this. In fact, I would ask not to have long discussions. The results are there. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Drummond.
Okay, I've actually got 2 points. I believe there are technically 4.
Okay.
So I'll allow Councillor Hood perhaps to mention hers. If Councillor O'Neill wants to go first about his, I would like to speak about mine, but let's do them in order.
What's the first one?
Excuse me, Chairman, point of order. Is this not confidential?
No.
Council Manager has said no.
Okay, thank you.
So the first one, sorry, my computer is now, is Councillor O'Neill, complainants, Councillor Hood and Ms. Bobby Bennett. So Councillor O'Neill, do you want to go first?
Yeah, as you can see, that I think it was upheld that I'd breached the code of conduct, but nothing was said that I had to do because I don't suppose they could find anything. My only point, I did want to apologise because I absolutely categorically refute the allegation that the complaint is about a letter I wrote in the journal. I was forced to write a letter in the journal because I tried to talk at meetings and was just shut down. Meetings were threatened to be suspended rather than me talk. And this was all about councillors who were not Conservative being voted off committees, and I wanted to vote us on. But basically, I just want to apologise and categorically state that my letter to the journal, where I mention minions handing cheques to sign to Councillor Hood, were in no way, shape or form talking about staff members. I was not talking of any staff members at all. I was talking about councillors.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to Councillor Drummond and Councillor Hood. You want to speak? You don't have to. Councillor Drummond.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't mind who wants to go first?
Well, shall I just say that my complaint about me was dismissed and leave it at that?
Thank you. Councillor Drummond?
Yes, I would like to say, so on the 12th of May, Councillor Hood and I received a complaint, which is item 22D, with some attachments. They're not included. And on the same day, Councillor Hood was exonerated. The decision letter with respect to Councillor Hood has been circulated and really should have been part of this agenda pack. The complaint was very much a scattergun approach, with the vast majority of the items being disproven. The complaint is also disingenuous with respect to comments that the new mayor made to the Newmarket Journal, which were basically, as long as we all work together. The decision letter, item 22F, makes it clear that an interim officer should not negotiate the start of their successor, and that the examples that were necessary to amend minutes of meetings were accepted by way of evidence of bad practice. The main culprit being the sentence "on terms to be agreed," which was never said. And the council later resolved that the new clerk had been employed following correct procedure. I think the root cause of my gripe with the acting town council manager stems from the fact that she reneged on the agreement she made in her email to all councillors on the 29th of March to reduce her hourly rate from £30 to £20 for those hours worked on the volunteer network helpline over the usual 25 hours per week. I could go on, but in the spirit of trying to work together collectively, the decision letter recommended that I apologise to the acting town council manager for the offence my emails had to potentially cause.
Thank you, Councillor
I
Brennan.
haven't quite finished. I did this immediately by email on Tuesday, the 23rd of June. The date of the decision letter and by return, the apology was noted. On the 25th of June, the monitoring officer confirmed that the most appropriate form of apology be given in the same forum in which the matter arose, which was by email. So as far as I'm concerned, the matter is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to read the final paragraph of one of these decision notices from the monitoring officer. It says, to move forward, the council does need to prioritise the work it had started to look at its strategic direction and how councillors and the council can work more positively together in the future. I have used those words and I hope we can do so. Town Council Manager, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think we're kind of almost back to where we started in February when we held the workshop. And at that workshop, I made a statement to councillors that I felt that it had a poor reputation because of political infighting, and that it had achieved very little of note since the election last May, that trying to work with the council was like walking through a minefield, never knowing when the next bomb was going to go off, and that I spent an inordinate amount of my time trying to manoeuvre through this minefield. That much time and energy is spent by councillors political manoeuvring, which is wasteful of council resources, including staff time, and that councillor behaviour is not conducive to staff retention. I also stated that this is not a game. This council is responsible for £750,000 of annual expenditure of public money, and everything this council does should be for the benefit of the residents of Newmarket. Every councillor needs to examine their reasons for being a town councillor, and if they can't honestly say that it's for that reason and that reason alone, then they should seriously reconsider their position. Politics should not interfere with the decision making of the town council. It's not appropriate at the community level of local government. And rather than trying to score political points against each other or individual councillors, you need to be focusing on developing a clear plan for what the council will achieve over the remainder of the electoral term and work together to deliver on it. This can't be achieved while you're all behaving like children in the playground. It's time to draw a line under the issues of the last few months and move forward. This was all stated before the pandemic. Since then, I have come to realise that the issues this council faces are caused by a small group of individuals who are so intent on their own agendas they are prepared to do just about anything to achieve them. Because I stood up to these individuals, I have been bullied, publicly and privately vilified, both in papers and on social media, had false accusations made about me. I've been libelled, suffered character defamation, been belittled and undermined at every opportunity, and even written out of history. They have upset other councillors, staff and members of the public by their actions and refuse to accept they have acted inappropriately. This cannot be allowed to continue, especially if the town council is going to have any chance of improving its reputation and achieving great things for the town. Newmarket Town Council now has the opportunity under new leadership and with a new town clerk to move forward positively as a team, especially as it has now proven what it is capable of with its response to the pandemic. But it can only do that if those individuals who seek to use their power to influence, control, manipulate and outmanoeuvre are silenced and marginalised, and those on the council who have much to offer are given a chance to shine and thrive under positive leadership and support. I can honestly say that the last 3 months of lockdown have been some of the most challenging of my life. Isolated from my family who all live the other side of the world and my son who lives in Yorkshire, I live alone and have, on top of all of the other hardships of this difficult time, had to deal with the most challenging behaviour from councillors that I've ever experienced in my 20 years of clerking. I leave Newmarket Town Council with mixed feelings, but overwhelming relief is the main one. I stuck it out when many others would have cracked under the pressure that I've endured because of the support of the majority of the councillors, all the staff and the members of the community that we have worked with over these past months, and because it was the right thing to do both for the community and the town council. To all of you, I say thank you for your support. To the others who have behaved so abominably, please take your politics away to a bigger pond and leave Newmarket Town Council out of it and allow it to get on with its job without your petty nitpicking and time wasting. I wish you all good luck in the future.
Thank you, Deborah. We do appreciate all your efforts. We have struggled through the coronavirus pandemic, but Newmarket has proudly offered a helpline to all its residents, very much thanks to the efforts that you've made. Thank you, Deborah. The date of the next meeting is the 27th of July, and I'm closing the meeting. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. Once again, I apologise.
Thank you, everybody.
So long. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for all you've done. You're an angel.
Yeah. Well done, Deborah. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deborah.